Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, there's all of these people out here giving dating advice to women, and nobody's hardly telling these men anything. And if my dates are anything to indicate what's really going on with men, men really don't know how to date. The road to love is exciting, funny, and sometimes can even be heartbreaking. But in the end, it'll all be worth it. Join me on my journey to love. Hey everybody, it's LaRonda and I am back with another video, and I want to wish you a very, very happy new year. It's 2022 and I am very excited for what's next in 2022. I'm hoping that this is the year of love for me, but we'll see. You know, I'm looking forward to all of the finding out part of things. So let's see how it goes. But today's video, I'm going to be kind of going into some tips that I have discovered that I think men could use when it comes to dating. Now, I gave 10 tips before, but these are ones that I've learned through a couple of dates that I went on in the last days of 2021. I went on 2 first dates and 1 second date. And I learned a few things from these dates about things that I want and things that I think men are seriously lacking. There's no shortage of people out here giving dating advice to women, but you see very few people giving good dating advice to men about how to conduct themselves on a date, how to conduct themselves with women, how to get with women in a way that's not so off-putting or also so aggressive. I'm going to give you some tips that I think are important and based on some experiences that I've had on some dates that I went on. So the first tip is degrees and certifications. Now, I think we all love to know that the people that we're going out on dates with are intelligent, upwardly mobile individuals and smart and all that kind of stuff. But I think that it's important to either mention them on your profile or mention them when you get on the date, but not both. I went out on a date with this guy who says, you know, he's got all these different degrees or certifications in his work as an electrician or master electrician or whatever you want to call it. And he speaks 5 languages. All of this was very impressive for me to read on his profile. I thought it was great, but I did kind of feel like in the profile as I read through it that it was kind of in a pretentious sort of way, like a braggadocious sort of way. But I looked past it with the full expectation that, you know, maybe this would be something that I wouldn't necessarily have to hear about on the date. But boy, was I wrong. Okay, so I got on the date. We went to a coffee shop, sat down, and he starts going into all this conversation about all this stuff about master electricianism or what, you know, for lack of a better, like, I mean, he just went the whole gamut using all types of acronyms and things that I didn't even understand, just going through the whole thing. And I just sat there for like 20 minutes. It felt like 20 minutes of him just going on and on and on about these degrees and the certifications and where he went to school for each one of them and all of that. And it was exhausting. Like, I was sitting there feeling like I was about to fall asleep at some point because it was just going on and on and on. I mean, not even taking a breath, not a break for me to jump in and say anything. I mean, just going on and on and on. So my thing is, mention it on your profile and maybe wait to be asked about it on the date, or mention it on the date and don't mention it on the profile. But mentioning it and on both just makes you seem like you're bragging too much. It makes you seem like you're very self-centered and talking about yourself and not really humble. You know, I mean, I agree. I think people it's important to be smart and have degrees and whatever else, but like nobody wants to hear about them for 20 or 30 minutes on a date. We just, I mean, really, seriously. So that's number one. Number two is stop talking too much. Like, the point of going on a date is to get to know the person that you're with. It's not just to sit there and talk about yourself the whole time and all of your thoughts and beliefs and your ideas and your degrees and your this and that and the third. It's also to give the other person some space to discuss who they are. You know, and you would think that you would want to get to know the person that you're with, not just for them to know you and then for them to walk away really you knowing really nothing about them, but them knowing all this extra mundane information about you that really they may not even fully care about. You know, it got to the point where I was kind of feeling like I was almost afraid to ask him any more questions because it would turn into 15 or 20 minutes of him just going on and on and on without a break. And so stop talking too much on these dates. Like, give the person that you're with a chance to say something, you know? Number three, don't answer the phone on the date unless it is a true emergency. Okay? So when you're on a date, I was on one of my dates and the man answered. He's like, we're sitting down talking about something, and I think I was like mid-sentence. The phone starts ringing. Oh, I've got to take this. It's one of my dad's old clients, whatever, something or other. This person was not anybody that he's currently a client with, you know, because at one point he had owned a business or something. This guy that he was talking to, you know, maybe was somebody important to him, but I mean, it was Sunday afternoon. I'm sure this man would have been perfectly fine if he did not answer the phone. And so then he gets on the phone and starts talking to him and telling him how he's over in another part of the island sharing time with family when he's sitting with me in Old San Juan. And I think he didn't think that I understood what he was actually saying. So I thought that was tacky. And then on top of that, then he starts going into this whole conversation about, you know, some kind of machine or whatever this man needed. I'm 100% sure that this wasn't something that this man couldn't have done without that day. Like, he did not have to answer that phone call with that. I mean, he wasn't going to get the machine today or that day because it was a Sunday evening. So most of these places are not open. If it was somewhere he needed to go to buy it, he was going to have to wait till Monday. So he could have easily called him back later that night or Monday morning, whatever the case was, you know. So that was one of the dates. And then the other one, the man was like making plans with a babysitter that didn't have his kids at that moment, but he was trying to set up something for a future day. And, you know, mind you, this man was in Puerto Rico for vacation. So obviously he wasn't setting up a babysitter for his kids while he was on vacation because his ex-wife had the kids. So, you know, it wasn't an emergency. It wasn't something that he needed to take the call for or do a text for at that moment. And then on the second date that I went on with this man, he was checking the sports stats. And clearly we know that's not an emergency. You know, it just goes to make the person that you're with feel like your head is somewhere else, that you're not really there with them. You're on your phone, you're, you know, taking phone calls. Now, if it's your children calling, that's the one exception that I make for dates. Because I know there's been times where my son has had to call me for a date while I was on a date. And, you know, you never know if it's an emergency or not. So you want to pick up the phone if it's your kids. or somebody like that, you know, like if it's your mother or father and you know they're old and they may need something, that's one thing. But just some random dude, or you're trying to set up some babysitting job for next month or next week or whatever. I mean, to me, those are not important things that you need to take away your time from what you're doing on your date. So avoid answering phone calls and making texts and checking your phone and all that on a date. It's just tacky and rude, I think. The fourth one is ask the woman questions and actually listen to the answers. So often I notice that people are, you know, asking a question and then barely listening to the answer and then chiming in with something else, you know? And if you want to chime in like with a similar thing that happened to you from what the person is saying in their answer, that's one thing, but just wait until the person finishes, because you want to at least give the illusion that you're actually interested in what the person is having to say, you know, and you do that by shutting up, letting them finish, and then chiming in. And more than likely, if the person that you're with is a good conversationalist, they'll probably reciprocate the question to you anyway when they finish answering. What about you? You know, after they finish answering. But if you cut them off before they finish their answer, number one, you don't get the full essence of what they're trying to say. And number two, you're probably not listening because you're busy formulating something else in your head. So if they ask you about this later on, you may not even be able to tell them what they even said because you weren't really fully paying attention. Okay, so ask a question and wait for the answer. You know, it's just the right thing to do. Okay. Number 5, wear clean or nice shoes. Even if your shoes are not the most expensive shoes ever, at least let them be clean. I went out on one of my first dates, and the dude, he had on Converse All-Stars, and they literally look like he bought them and has been wearing them since 1985. I mean, they were falling apart. They had holes in them. They were super dirty, you know, and it was just like, why would he choose to wear those on our date? You know, and first impressions are big, right? And we all know, like, so often I've heard from many people that women look at shoes and hands of men. And so when I'm going out on a date with somebody, just out of curiosity, you know, I'll look at whatever kind of shoes they have on, not because I'm trying to size up, you know, how much they make or whatever. For me, shoes are a part of one's style, and they show how much you care about yourself. If you get a good pair of shoes, they can last a very long time. And it shows that you care a little something about yourself. But when you come with shoes that look like you've been moving earth with your feet for 10 years or 20 years or whatever, you didn't bother to clean them or make them look nice, or they've got holes in them and all that kind of stuff, it says to me that you don't have the resources to take care of yourself, or you don't care to take care of yourself, or it just sends the wrong message. Same thing with hands. Like, you know, if you're a person that is doing manual type labor, you know, and things with your hands a lot, sometimes we develop calluses and things like that. I know with me, from going to the gym and using weight machines and stuff, I've got little calluses or whatever that are forming on my hands. So I use, like, I've got this little cream that I think is good for men. That, now, this is not a sponsored ad, but this cream doesn't have any scent to it. And so if you're a guy and you've got, you know, maybe more used hands and they've got calluses and things like that, this is a good cream to use. It doesn't have a scent, and it's nice and thick and will really moisturize your hands really well. so that your hands feel soft. So when you go in for that kiss and you put your hands on her face, she's not going to come back bleeding because your callus cut the side of her face, or, you know, you poked an eye out with, you know, your hands, or some kind of giant piece of skin that you've got hanging off your hands, or clean your nails and stuff like that. I mean, these are things that show that you care about yourself, you know, and a woman wants to see that you care about yourself, because if you care about yourself, you're probably going to care about everything around you, including the woman that you're dating. And that's what we want to see, you know. So wear some nice shoes, clean your shoes. Like, even if you're going to wear old shoes, at least make sure they're clean. I mean, that's the least you could do, is clean them up, you know. Okay, and so the number 6, I think I gave you, for number 5, I think I gave you 2 tips. So, you know, anyway, number 6, Audible. There's a book called Dating Essentials for Men by Dr. Robert Glover. Now, how I found out about this book was from the man that I went on the first and second date with. He told me, you know, we were kind of sharing our Audible libraries, and he shared with me this book. And I was like, oh, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, there's all of these people out here giving dating advice to women, and nobody's hardly telling these men anything. And if my dates are anything to indicate what's really going on with men, men really don't know how to date. Sometimes, I mean, some of them, I mean, there's some that do really well, and they, you know, are really good at it, and really good at making a woman feel good on the dates. And I've been on some good dates with some nice men. I'm not saying all of them, but for the most part, I would say there's so many men that could use some good dating tips. So I want to recommend this book. I went ahead and listened to it. It's, I think, about a 6-hour listen on Audible, or I'm sure they have the hardback or paperback or whatever if you are a person that doesn't like that. And I'm sure they also have the Kindle version. But me, I prefer Audibles because I can go and, you know, do other things and listen to the book at the same time. So some of the stuff that I liked about the book was, and that I totally agreed with, was that he said that women want security. And that is so true. And a lot of the tips that I've given you today are ways that you can make a woman feel secure in your presence. You know, listening to her, you know her understanding that you've got all these degrees and stuff. I mean, that's a part of being feeling secure, because you know your man will be able to provide for you and stuff. He's got resources that are available to him that he could use to make more money, or whatever the case is, or, you know, that would allow for you to have a good life with him, stuff like that. So I think that is a very true statement. When women definitely want security. He said one of the other things that he was saying in the book was, you know, making some of those decisions. So like when you go out on a date, when you were ready to ask a woman out on a date, he said, don't ask, tell. Which is nice, because it shows, one, confidence and assertion. So when a man comes to you and says, or when a man comes to me and says, hey, LaRonda, I want to take you out to, you know, this new restaurant that I found out about. I really want to try it. Let's go on whatever day at whatever time. And all I have to do is say, yes, either that day and time works for me, or offer an alternative time, but I don't have to do anything else. Once we've got that all established, all I have to do is get dressed and show up. It's not a whole bunch of back and forth. Well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you know, I've been with men where, you know, it was hard for them to make a decision, or like once we decided we were going to go out, I had to then figure out where we were going to go and what time we were going to get there and all this kind of stuff, where we were going to meet. It was so refreshing when I went on this first and second date with the one dude who said, hey, there's this place, there's a steakhouse, we can go there and have margaritas or whatever he mentioned. You know, it was like everything was already set up. All I had to do was get ready and show up where I was supposed to be. So at least for part of it, our date, he was paying attention to this book. The man also talked about not answering the phone or not being on your phone on the date and stuff like that. But he, I guess, didn't get that part, but whatever. But I think that those kinds of things that this man offered in the book were very good tips for men that they could very much use. He also said that the men should pay for the dates, for the first and second dates, you know, and then even if the woman insisted upon paying on the second date, that he should not let her pay, because he said that men should be setting the tone for the relationship. You know, whatever the relationship will end up being, that the man is setting the tone. And if you're letting the woman pay, that's setting a very different tone than what you may be wanting to set. So, you know, I thought that a lot of the points that he made were very good. One of the things that I thought the book was lacking was that he didn't tell the people about how to be upfront with what they're looking for the woman. So like whether you're looking for it to be just a sexual relationship, whether you're looking for it to be something that leads to marriage, or whatever the case is, or anything in between, he didn't really make it very clear about when and how the men were supposed to make that clear to the woman. So I think a lot of times us women are having to try to decipher that, or either straight out ask. Luckily, there's sites like Bumble, for example, who have allowed it a space for men and women to fill out what exactly they're looking for, whether it's, I don't know what I'm looking for something casual, I'm looking for a relationship, looking for marriage, whatever. It's already out there and available if the person has filled that in on their profile. But for these other sites that don't have that as an option, you're either going to have to figure out based on the behavior of the person. Like if they're, you know, trying to push too hard towards the physical, you probably know that they're not really looking for anything very serious, especially in the beginning, like first and second date. If they're trying to push you into something physical, or, you know, trying to get too intimate too quick, then you kind of know what they're looking for. But what would be nice is if, you know, these men, or if the people giving advice would tell men to be upfront about that right away, so that a woman knows exactly where she stands and she can move on pretty quickly. So there were a lot of tips in the book that he had, and I think it's a good book for any man that's dating in you know, this world right now. Some of the stuff, the book is a little bit older, so some of the stuff may be slightly outdated, but I mean, I think the tips overall are good. So if you're out here dating, pick up the book and read it. And he's got other books as well, and it may offer you some tips that really could get you to the next level in your dating. You know, we've got 1,000 books out here for us, and now I think it's time for the men to pick up some dating skills themselves as well. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you have a very happy new year. If you like the video, please definitely subscribe and share it with some of the men that you know that might need some of these tips, you know. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Happy dating, everybody. Bye-bye.